Hello friends, welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher. Today we're talking about my favorite top 5 emotional player hooks that'll work with any player. Now, I'm not talking about backstory prompts. I'm not talking about the tragic orphan with a sword type trope. I'm talking about hooks that you can put into any campaign, use with any player that'll actually stick and hit something real that'll make the game way more exciting for that player character. If you have player characters and you want to really rope them in, if you think to yourself, I need to increase the emotional intensity, I need to raise the stakes, these player characters need to get hooked in harder. These 5 hooks can be used literally, like universally, and they will work, and let's dive into them. I'm super excited to share these with you. Hook number 1, someone you love is in danger. This is a classic, but it works for a number of reasons. This could be a sibling, a mentor, a lover, a child. All you need to do to make this work is isolate one NPC or person in the world that this character cares about. A little preemptive planning, you can introduce friends or NPCs or, even animal companions who this player character comes to love and care about. And then you have everything you need to deploy this hook. Here's why this works. It cuts through the plot and the details and taps straight into emotional concepts like loyalty, fear, and protection. Even the edgiest rogue will feel something when someone they actually care about is threatened. And no matter what players might want to say, it's going to be challenging for any player to not get emotionally hooked by this one. And I know it's a classic, it's a trope you've probably used before, but this one is so powerful, I would encourage you to keep it in your universal player hooks toolbox. As a bonus, you can escalate it slowly. Start with mysterious letters, end with a kidnapping or a corruption arc. Let the dread creep in, to make it even more diabolical. That's going to lead us to hook number 2. You're the only one who can stop this. This isn't about chosen one syndrome. This is actually about a sense of responsibility, but also recognition and the realization of greatness and storyline arc potential. You give the player a moment where it becomes clear. If they don't act, no one else will. And in fact, there might not be anyone else who's capable. Here's why this trope kind of works. It hits that deep human drive to matter, to be significant. Even players who don't usually go deep will lock in when the stakes are tied to their agency and their power to shape their destiny and the greater destiny of the world or the rest of the party or even the dungeon crawl itself. Frame it like this. You know the truth. This is what you as a GM, this is the messaging you're giving to the player. You know the truth. Everyone else is either wrong, they're not strong enough, they are not well suited enough. This would be self-destruction for them, but for you, it could be glory because you are the one to do it. So what are you going to do? Are you going to step into the line of fire or are you going to ignore it, right? This is so powerful. You can use this hook literally regardless of class, regardless of alignment. And if you make it about that sense of responsibility and recognition, that's what makes it emotionally evocative. Now let's go on to hook number 3. You're haunted by what you did or what you didn't do. Regret is actually a gold mine. And I don't mean this in a mean way, but it is kind of diabolical. This could be a mission gone wrong. This could be something in their tragic backstory, a friend they failed, a town they didn't save, or something they swore they'd never speak of again. Here's why it works. Because players love redemption. As a general rule, most humans hate having a cloud of judgment and guiltiness hanging over them. They crave the chance to fix something, even if it's just symbolic. It makes every decision feel heavier and more satisfying when they do get it right. And then they have a chance to feel good about the lightness that comes from redeeming themselves, right? You don't want to overplay this. You don't want to actually make players feel bad for what their characters did, but you can use that guilt as a story catalyst and then let them choose why it matters and then give them a chance for redemption. And let me tell you something, they'll probably bite because this one is a banger. Let's move on to hook number 4. You finally found what you've been looking for. but it's complicated. All right? The search is over. The item, the person, the answer, it's here. Maybe it was a treasure. Maybe it was a spell they were looking for. Maybe it was a person they've been seeking. But maybe it's corrupted. Maybe the person they thought they knew has changed. Maybe the happy ending they envisioned is clouded over by something dark, something that just sets it off slightly, a kilter. It's not quite right. Maybe the truth isn't what they hoped it would be. Let me tell you why this works. It puts the player in a beautiful emotional bind. Joy meets grief. Relief meets dread. That's storytelling magic. And then you dangle in front of them the carrot. It's not right, but you could make it right. And that will hook even the most steadfast and stoic players into your emotional web. A sword once held by their ancestor, maybe it's now cursed. A lost parent is returned, but now there's a suspicion that they're working for the enemy and they're acting really strange about it. Maybe there's a cure for the player character's condition, but it's going to cost the life of someone they love, right? These types of scenarios can create some of the best RP moments you'll ever see, and they have a tendency to get their hooks in deep because they are emotional and they force the player character to hold hope in one hand and then the dread of what's actually going on in the other, and trying to balance those things out. And then we're going to finally move on to hook number 5. Now, before we get into hook number 5, I want to encourage you to download my top 10 GM tips ebook. This is the 10-minute GM toolkit, 10 essential tips that I've learned through 20 plus years of gaming for how to level up your sessions, literally take your sessions up several notches with one 10-minute read. Your next game could be a smashing success with 1 or 2 or 3 of the tips derived from this book. So grab it. It is free. No reason not to grab it. Link is in the description. Now, hook number 5. You are finally seen for who you really are. This is the mirror moment, if we're talking in terms of philosophy. A stranger walks up and says, "You're the one from the stories, aren't you?" Or an NPC recognizes the character, not for what they've done, but for who they are on the inside. They're like, everyone thinks you're this, knight in shining armor, but I see what you really are. You're torn, you're twisted. You lost the one you loved and it torments you, right? Here's why this works. Because deep down, every player, and actually every human, wants to be understood. It's a hook of recognition, of intimacy, of belonging, of being seen. If you lead an NPC up to the player character and they say something like, I know that you have this outer aura of confidence, but I can tell when I look in your eyes, there's something hidden, a dark secret from your past. I want to know what it is because I want to know you. If you approach a character with this kind of energy, that you are going to get them so hooked. I would challenge you to find a situation where this does not at least lead to some kind of interesting interaction. And I challenge you to have this happen and the player not really care about it. The player is going to care about it. This is going to actually throw them into a story arc that at the very least is going to engage them. They may not enjoy it, not in the traditional sense, because sometimes these arcs lead good and sometimes they lead to negatives. Sometimes they lead to hope and a better future, and sometimes they lead to destruction or to corruption, or they're being led down this dark path, whatever. But if you use this sparingly and responsibly and you don't push too hard and you just it's in passing. It's a little bitty, throw the hook out in passing. If they don't bite, okay. You run it again next session. But I'm going to tell you what, eventually they're going to bite. And when it lands, it's going to be memorable. Especially if you work on it, you coax it, you don't lay it on too thick, and you just lay little bits so that they follow the rabbit trail, right? That's all you need to do. And that is going to be powerful. So those are the 5 best emotional player hooks that I've used in my games that I believe are my favorites right now, especially in 2025. And honestly, I end up coming back to them over and over because they're so powerful. But here's the truth I want you to understand. Players want to feel something. They're not here to just roll dice, drink beer, and eat pizza. They're not just here to win fights. They want to be a part of a story that moves them. Don't get me wrong. A good beer, a good pizza, rolling some awesome attack rolls. These things are all good. Nothing wrong with this. But we want to be a part of something that really hits us, that makes us feel something. This is what art does. This is why we watch movies, we listen to music, and play TTRPGs, because we want to be stirred by something. And you can give your players that. You do not have to force your players to role play. You can invite them with little hooks like this. Just, throw it out there and reel them in and watch the magic unfold. And that is all I have for this one. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm here several times a week creating videos about the best game in the world, D&D. So I will see you awesome people on the next one.